The 1994 American film Forrest Gump by Robert Zemeckis and 2014 Korean film Ode to My Father by J.K. Yoon both tell the story of a boy in the 1950s that grows up being involved in historical events throughout his life, such as the Vietnam War, and key events in their respective countries, and meet famous people from those countries. There are numerous cinematic techniques that are utilized in both films, especially mise-en-scène and camera angles, shots, and movements. But how do they express the differences between American and Korean culture? Mise-en-scène is the essence of differentiating between the cultural aspects of both films. The opening scene of Forrest Gump follows a feather flying through the city where Forrest waits at a bus station. Similarly, the opening scene of Ode to My Father shows a butterfly in the town where Toksu, the protagonist, lives as an elderly man. The feather in Forrest Gump represents, according to the New York Times film critic Janet Maslin, a fine visual embodiment of Forrest's own path through life. The butterfly in Ode to My Father can be interpreted the same way, with different context. Before leaving to search for a missing daughter, Toksu's father tells Toksu to take care of the family, and according to film editor Yvonne Tae of the South China Morning Post, Toksu does his utmost over the ensuing decades to do just that. So in essence, the butterfly represents his journey taking care of his family. The cultural differences in the scene comes from the set design. In Forrest Gump, the feather flies through an American town. This is evident seeing the American suburb in Savannah, Georgia, and the modern American architecture and cars. Americans are walking reading the newspaper, which is a very culturally accepted norm. On the other hand, Ode to My Father shows a very busy street market in the city of Busan, where people are busy shopping and walking about on a very crowded street. The buildings are older and very close together, and there are more cars and traffic. The set design of the opening scenes introduces the different settings the characters have grown up in, and show that while they experience similar events, different cultures made all the difference. Another example of mise-en-scène can be seen when both Forrest and Toksu encounter famous or to-be famous figures in their lifetime. For instance, Forrest as a little boy meets Elvis Presley. Forrest, in this instance, wears the typical American dress at that time, a collared shirt and khaki shorts, and he looks neat and well off. Meanwhile, Toksu at the same age meets entrepreneur Chung Ju-young, eventually the founder of the car company Hyundai. Toksu and his friend in this instance are poor due to the aftermath of the Korean War, wearing thin, worn clothes and do not appear clean. Most Koreans at this time lived in poverty after war in the 1950s, whereas America was thriving at this time, allowing Forrest to live a more comfortable life. It is the same case when adult Toksu meets Andre Kim, a famous South Korean fashion designer. Toksu lives with his aunt who owns a small fabric shop, showing his humble life while Forrest is able to be successful. There are hints of the Marxist film theory in Ode to My Father, where Toksu and his friend complain about the upper class privileges while they must work to make ends meet. While in Forrest Gump, Forrest does not need to compare his life as it is already comfortable. There are many moments in Ode to My Father where Toksu and his friend are hard at work while they complain about the upper class people who have more privileges and are able to live more comfortably without working as hard as them. Costume and set design also show the contrast between the characters' lives and early on in the film. When Forrest enters the bus on his first day of school, every other student wears nice, clean clothes. The character Jenny is even wearing a dress. On the other hand, the boys Toksu plays with in the street wear worn clothes as previously stated. This shows how mise-en-scène emphasizes the differences in the cultural aspect of the boys' lives. Cinematic similarity in both films is the abundance of pants and tracking shots. The opening scenes of both films are continuous tracking shots of the feather and the butterfly that make their way to the protagonists. The tracking shot reveals the scene's mise-en-scène that is uncovered throughout the feather and butterfly's paths that will show the cultural difference of both the films. However, when in the Vietnam War, Robert Zemeckis in Forrest Gump mostly uses static wide and medium shots to focus more on the emotions of Forrest and the dedication the American troops as a whole have to serving their country. There are many shots of the soldiers walking together across the field and jungle preparing to fight. Since Americans are very passionate about their military, the static shots emphasize the character's dedication instead of the event itself.
On your feet. You've got 10 clicks to go to that river.
Ode to My Father, on the contrary, relies heavily on pans to reveal the environment and focus on what the characters are experiencing rather than how they are experiencing it. It is Korea's first time fighting outside their country, so the panning shots show the war that Toksu and the other soldiers are fighting. The final scene of Forrest Gump zooms out from a close-up of Forrest to a wide shot of outside his house, following the feather. Ode to My Father also ends with tracking the butterfly and eventually an establishing shot of the town of Busan. Both camera movements of the film symbolize the satisfying life that both characters had despite the hardships they had experienced in their cultures. Forrest Gump and Ode to My Father tell the story of characters growing up at the same time in two entirely different cultures. But both Zemeckis and Yoon utilize mise-en-scène and camera movements to effectively convey the cultural differences of the same time period and events.